Hey everybody, and this is JTrain997, and I just got out of the midnight, well, not the midnight. Been so much easier if there was a midnight. I just got out of the day one screening of Lone Ranger. I guess I'll call it that. There's no such thing as a midnight anymore. I saw it at 10:10. I was actually rushing to get off work. Managed to get off with like 5 minutes to spare. My job is literally almost the same parking lot as the movie theater. Rushed across, got in right as the movie was starting. Didn't miss anything. So, I saw a review, the first review a week ago, and it said, oh, this is great, it's a great action adventure, people are going to love it. The only negative thing it had to say was, too violent for kids, don't take kids. And then the other reviews came in, and all the reviews have just been just trash, and like, oh, this is a garbage movie, the only good part is Johnny Depp. It is just bad. And I liked it. Like, I am a Lone Ranger fan, and I know that's like saying, you know, and they're connected, just like saying I'm a Green Hornet fan. I realize there may be a few hundred that are like really and truly devoted fans of this character that came out in the 30s. I get that. I love them because it's obscure, you know, it's one of the, you know, true Western heroes that are still out there that went for a really long time. But this movie, and I'm not saying it's perfect because it's not, I thought was a great action adventure. Now, of course, everyone's like, oh, well, Johnny Depp as Tonto, isn't he the main focus? And what I didn't know going in is that it's him telling the story. And it's like, I think it said 1930s, he's telling the story to this random kid who wanders into the tent, or the Wild West show, or whatever it is, about him and the Ranger, and the kid obviously knows who they are, so I'm guessing, you know, it's just like, people remember them, they know them, you know, for being who they were. And so that's really kind of justified immediately why there's so much Tonto, because it's him telling the story. Now, the movie runs 2.5 hours. That is a long chunk of time. And I'll even level with you, I'm the guy who, when he hears the movies for a long time, I'm like, great, I love going to the movies, I love sitting there, I love, you know, having a long movie that I can get invested in. This movie was too long. That's one of the first big things I'm going to say about it, is there was parts where, right around the hour and a half mark, where I'm just like, oh, for God's sake, get on with it. You know, and it really comes down to how they characterize the Ranger. If you're wondering what I keep looking down at, I've got my NECA figures right here. But, it's just like, okay, I get it. The Ranger starts off and they clearly, you know, show that he's a very, you know, he's literally by the books. He doesn't like, you know, doing anything, he doesn't like violence at all. He thinks everything can be settled in a courtroom. And the problem with that is that's the part of the origin that should be done in the first, you know, 30, 40 minutes, if that. But they drag it out through the whole movie of the Ranger being like, I don't want to touch a gun, shooting people is wrong. And, you know, and it really gets to the end and you're like, there hasn't been a lot of gunplay in this movie, and there is in the finale. But it's like the Ranger, he, until the end, really doesn't fire a bullet. Well, I take it back, he does, but like not in an actual gunfight, kind of like a just half-assed. And I was kind of disappointed by that, like, you know, I think the big thing they were trying to justify was, you know, the Lone Ranger isn't known for just dropping people. He's very much in the old Clayton Moore show, he's like, I shoot, but I shoot to wound, I don't like to kill people, it's wrong. And they were trying to respect that while still making him, you know, this badass, which didn't really work. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm glad he wasn't just going like, yeah, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. Because he pulls a Batman towards the end, he doesn't really kill anyone, but he leaves someone to die, which in my book is the same thing. Almost exactly what happened in Batman Begins. He leaves someone on a runaway train. But that's really my thing. I'm like, and it's not a horrible thing watching the Ranger come to be who it is. Parts of it are a lot of fun. You get to see him struggling with like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. I know I need violence, but I shouldn't. These people definitely deserve to be killed, but it shouldn't be this way, down to, wow, the law's too corrupt to do anything about it. And that's a really great character arc, but I feel like everything in this movie is just drawn out to the absolute breaking point. And during the movie, you keep getting breaks where it cuts back to old Tonto talking to this kid, and it makes it feel kind of choppy in parts where you're like, I don't care. I know Tonto's telling the story. I don't need breaks to go back to this kid and just have him going, why did that happen? And that kind of garbage. That's fine. It could have been beginning and end, and I would have been happy. Now, I do actually really like Armie Hammer, who plays the Ranger. I didn't think I would. I heard a lot of reviews say, oh, he's such a flat, one-dimensional character. And I don't really think that at all. I thought he was a lot of fun. Obviously, Johnny Depp is his usual crazy self. And a lot of people are criticizing this movie, being like, oh, all they did was, have Johnny Depp in Native American makeup and tell him to act like Jack Sparrow. I mean, it's not really Jack Sparrow, it's Johnny Depp. He's kind of a character, he's that kind of actor. He's going to be zany and wild in most every role you put him in. And to his credit, it works here. Is it the way I picture Tonto? No, but you get a good bit of his backstory, and it kind of justifies this is why Tonto is like this. This is why he's, doing this stuff. It kind of really brought it together for me. I wasn't, in love with it, but they made it work in the context of the film. Speaking of that, there's a lot of things in the Ranger mythology they kind of took for granted. Like silver bullets. Everyone knows the Ranger uses silver bullets, and in this they have it being like Tonto comes up, he's like, oh, they're Wendigos, evil spirits, you need a silver bullet to kill them. And they don't really make a bigger deal out of it than that. They keep showing you that, the Ranger is using silver bullets, but they don't make it like that's all he uses. They changed the meaning of Kemosabe, which, if I recall correctly, is supposed to mean trusty scout, and in this they say it means wrong brother. Another gripe I had about the movie is they make it a big deal about the meeting of the transcontinental railroads. And the movie is set in Texas, and I'm pretty sure that happened in Utah, didn't it? I mean, I don't think they actually were like, oh, this is the final stop, because everyone knows Ulysses S. Grant hammered in the last spike. But they made this big meeting. I don't think they really made it clear enough that this isn't where the railroads meet. These guys are just having a big deal about they're getting close, or they did it at some other time. I'm not exactly sure about the dates, and that kind of got muddled. And I feel like really that made the movie bog down a bit. And there's a lot of things like that where I'm like, man, somebody needed... And I hate saying this because I don't want this to have turned out like G.I. Joe Retaliation, where we got the bare bones of a movie and all the character was cut out. But I feel like somebody needed to sit down and trim about 30 minutes of this movie out, at least. The action's great. I thought the fight scenes were good and over the top. I do stand by, I wish there was a bit more gunplay in this movie. It's not to say it's lacking, but, like I said, the Ranger until the end really isn't all that active into, firing guns. And it's just, I know it's a gripe, but I really just wish there had been more. Now, how to say this? One other big thing I have about this movie is I don't understand the whole, Tonto's, I get it, he's a Native American spirit walker, or whatever they call it, and he's like, oh, you're a spirit warrior, and they keep, it's like the movie is dipping the toe into the supernatural, and they don't want to commit to it. There's one part where there's a rock, a big brick of silver on the table, and Tonto goes, don't touch it, it's cursed, and of course the Lone Ranger picks it up and touches it, and he has, a vision of this random shit, and it's him in the place of Butch Cavendish, and then he puts it back down, and it's never referenced again. It being cursed. Or more importantly, the magic that's in it, and you're like, why? Why did I need to see that? And this, I've really tried to keep this spoiler-free, but there's not much to spoil. The end credit scene, the whole story is Tonto talking to this kid. And in the end, he puts on a suit, and he turns around to which is clearly a wall, and walks into the wall, but you don't see it. And then he's just gone, he's vanished. The end credits is literally watching Tonto in age makeup walk into the desert for 10 minutes straight, and there's no payoff. And my whole thing is, I don't get it. Am I supposed to learn something? Is this something that I'm supposed to go, oh, this is supposed to be a big revelation about Tonto? I didn't have that. I'm watching old Johnny Depp walk into the desert. I don't get it. They don't establish where the Ranger is, which is what I thought they might do. And it's just this, as a directorial move, I'm just I just feel like this is supposed to be some big moment for me, and I have no clue. Because I don't want Tonto to be a real magic person. I was okay with him being oh, you're a spirit warrior or whatever, because in part of the movie, they even tell him, Tonto's fucking crazy. He's making a lot of this up. And, that really kind of justified everything for me. They're like, oh, the bird on his head, he's just insane. He feels really, really guilty about what happened. And I feel like the movie just it was trying to cross the line too much, where it's like, a little bit of magic. Oh, nope. And it was just always that little bit that made you doubt, like, oh, this is cursed. Nope. Oh, look at what Tonto can do. That kind of crap where I'm like, pick a side and stick to it. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm being hard on this movie, but I feel like I had to come in defending it because there have been... The reviews aren't all horrible, but a lot of them are saying it's mediocre at best. And I think it's a really fun action-adventure. You definitely shouldn't take kids to it. It's a surprisingly violent movie for Disney. I'll give it to them. They didn't pull any punches with the violence. There's somebody cuts out the heart and eats it. A whole tribe of Comanches get just shredded. Although kudos on the Wendigo thing, because that's a really obscure Native American legend, although I don't think it's Comanche. I know it started right along the Canadian border. I forget which tribe that was, but that's a really cool little thing, and they tied in to make Butch Cavendish a little more sinister and evil. And coming up to the movie, I knew Butch Cavendish, is the Lone Ranger villain. He's the one everybody uses. And they weren't really talking about him much. But he's very present in the movie. It's just like everyone thought Tonto was going to be bigger. He's got as much, if not a tiny bit more, than Armie Hammer is the Ranger, but the Ranger is obviously, and definitely when you're watching the film, the main character. And I feel like when I walked away from it, things could be changed. It could have been better. I really wish we would have got that Green Hornet reference in there, because the Green Hornet is a descendant of the Lone Ranger. And even in Seth Rogen's god-awful movie, I hate it to the core of my soul, The Green Hornet, he had a Lone Ranger poster hanging in the background, just that little nod, we get it, where they're connected. I was hoping there would have been something like that, but no. So at the end of the day, it's going up against Despicable Me in the box office. I don't know who will win, honestly. Because people love Johnny Depp. Like, that was, in the 10/10 showing, there was obviously more, and this isn't hard to figure out. There's way more Johnny Depp fans than there are Lone Ranger fans. Johnny Depp is probably the biggest draw for this movie. Hurts me to say it, but I'm not going to lie to myself. And I don't think he did a bad job. I hope that this, well, with all the reviews it's getting, I don't know how it'll do. I really do hope it gets a sequel. There's some great moments in this movie. There's some parts I don't like. But overall, when you stand back and look at it as a whole, I'm really satisfied with what I saw, and I really enjoyed it. Now, I do have a thing where I always talk about, like, when I go in and see a movie, I never completely trust myself, because I'm like, it's new, I've been waiting on it, I want to step back and watch it again later. And I said that in the Amazing Spider-Man account. I'm like, I think I like it, probably the best out of all the Spider-Man movies. Maybe, the original Spider-Man 2 is a little bit better. Now I go back and look at it, I'm like, wow, I just don't like this anymore. But I don't think it's going to be like that with Lone Ranger on. But me and Carolina Poison are actually going to go see it again. Maybe this weekend, maybe next. It all just depends. And we're going to do a joint review. I don't know if it'll be here on our podcast channel. I'll post a link up if it does. Also, that's where our Man of Steel thoughts are going to be. Everyone got mad because I didn't do a Man of Steel Midnight, but I had some stuff going on. You can go to that channel. We're actually about to do a Man of Steel review this weekend. But as it stands, I would go see Lone Ranger. It's a great action adventure. It's not for kids, but the violence isn't. Like I say, he cuts out a person in its heart and eats it. But it's all implied. It never, actually shows, him doing it. It just shows, oh, you see him over there with a knife, and then you see, and he's got up and he's got blood on his mouth. So it really depends on what you personally think your kid can take. There is blood. There is a lot of people just dropping, even though it's not the Ranger. And one other thing I'll address real quick. The whole Silver is like a spirit horse. Like, they do this thing where, I guess Silver likes to jump up in high places. Because there's one part where he's on top of a barn, and the Ranger even says, does the horse fly? And Tom's like, don't be stupid. And then he jumps up onto a stack of crates, so I'm guessing they're implying that Silver jumped up. And then later he's just up in the tree eating off some leaves off a branch. I didn't need that. I feel like the biggest issue in this film, and it just kind of clicked for me, is the tone. Because they'll be like, oh, it's a happy family adventure. It's just like Pirates. It's a little dark sometimes, but we're having a good time. It's a lot of fun. And then they cut back to, no, this guy lost everything. This is a revenge story. He is desperate. This is dark. People are dying left and right. And then it goes right back to, no, it's lighthearted. It's fun. And they try to mix it, and in parts it works, and in parts it just doesn't. Like, I feel like there's a real lull at about the hour-and-a-half mark, where you're just, like, waiting for something to happen, and you're like, hurry up. Because even me, I was like, man, this is dragging. But, and I don't want to make it sound like I hated it, because like I said, I really did enjoy the film. It could have been better. I would still pay to see it. And that being said, this is JTrain997, and I'll see you soon, YouTube. Oh, and look for mine, Carolina Poison's joint review later in the week, or next week.